has attracted many of us here, and perhaps some of us are waiting for me to drop some token recommendations. Give us the token itself, mashallah, not the recommendations. Give the token itself. We're waiting for that Bitcoin, that Ethereum, maybe some Dogecoin. Unfortunately, that won't be happening in this talk. Yet, at least. Maybe if MCF invites me back for a second time, then I can drop the tokens, inshallah. But in this talk, what we're going to do at a high level is we're first going to be talking about money. And number one is about how money works and why it's important even to talk about as Muslims. Number two, how it is today harming Muslims, the current monetary system and how money works. And then finally, at the very end, we'll talk for a little bit about crypto and potentially how it can help us solve the issues. Now, I know this is not a normal talk at a masjid, and so I extend my thanks to Brother Rehan and all the MCF board here and the Imam for allowing us to host this talk, because usually Muslims find money to be a touchy issue, to be something icky maybe, and to be something that we shouldn't talk about, except maybe when we're asking our parents for a new car, maybe our husbands, maybe sometimes ourselves. Cyber truck. That's when we think about money. But actually, maybe it's perhaps a deep-set issue that we don't recognize the place that money has in the Islamic framework of the world. So I'm going to ask some couple questions. The first is the longest ayah in the Quran. Does anyone know which surah it's in? Surah Al-Baqarah. The longest ayah in the Quran, it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, and it is entirely about money. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه. It starts off talking about loans and giving loans and how to record transactions when you give loans. It continues to talk about trade, tijara. And not only that, not only is the longest ayah entirely about money, but Allah follows it up with another ayah, again about money. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضًا. And how to hold the money, and how to transfer the money, and how to operate with the money. And then, interestingly enough, Allah talks about something totally different. And in these ayahs after about money, these ayahs, I'm sure every Muslim recognizes, even if they didn't recognize the ayahs that I just read. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا تَدَايَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى فَاكْتُبُوهُ, or وَإِن كُنْتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضًا. These very next ayahs, every Muslim, I'm sure, has heard, and if not, recognizes very easily these ayahs. And these ayahs are none other than لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. These ayahs are the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. These ayahs are talking about Allah's dominion over the universe. And it is the ayahs we recite begging Allah for help. رَبَّنَا لَا تُحَمِّلْنَا مَا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا بِهِ. These are ayahs of dua where we ask Allah for help and beg Allah to not place a burden on us bigger than we can bear. And no doubt, there is some connection between these two, between the concept of money and how we record our money and how we keep track of our money, and our connection with Allah and begging Allah for help. That's the Quran. How about the Sunnah? And I know the Sunnah is vast, and even different madhabs view what is included in the sunnah differently, but we're going to take a very simple example. Sahih Bukhari, a part of the sunnah that everyone recognizes. How much of Sahih Bukhari does anyone know or wants to take a guess about is about trade, commerce, and money? Any guesses? 40%? Somebody said? 20%? Okay, any others? 50%. This brother really wants to talk about money, mashallah. The first answer is closer. It's actually about 15%. About 1/6 of the entirety of Sahih Bukhari is about money. And again, it's not something that we hear, I would venture to say, 1/6 of the time in our khutbahs, 1/6 of the time in these halaqas at mosques, 1/6 of the time in videos on YouTube. And that's interesting. I'll finish with this story just to emphasize the connection between spirituality, between money, and our connection with Allah. There was a great scholar, his name, he was actually had the title of Shaykh al-Islam. His name was Ibn Abi Jama'a at-Tunisi. He was originally from Tunisia, but was in Cairo and had the title of Shaykh al-Islam. He was a great scholar. And the people of his time asked him, Shaykh, can you write us a book on spirituality? You know, our hearts are feeling kind of hard, our connection with Allah is feeling kind of weak. Can you write us a book on spirituality? So he said, sure, I'll write a book on spirituality. He came back some time later and handed them the book, and they looked at it and they said, Shaykh, this says the rulings of the marketplace, the rulings of transactions, the rulings of commerce. We asked you for spirituality. He said, this is spirituality. The rulings of commerce and money and trade is spirituality, is how you improve your connection with Allah. You see, money is a lot like to society and to families and to our livelihoods. It's a lot like blood is to the body. When your blood flow is healthy, you don't talk about it. When your heart is beating well, pumping well, your blood is pumping well, you go to your doctor and get the blood test, everything is good, you say alhamdulillah, you don't even look at all those different letters, you got LDL, HDL, D, and all these complicated letters. Most people don't even recognize it. What you do talk about is your heart. You talk about, oh, you know, I'm feeling good today, my heart's at peace. What you do talk about is your mind. You say, alhamdulillah, you know, my intellect is sharp, I did well on my MCAT, my LSAT, my bar, my step 1, my SAT, my ACT, whatever endless exams we have, and I'm doing well at my job, I'm advancing my career, my mind is sharp. And so you don't talk a lot about blood. But when there's a problem with the heart, when you get a heart attack, what do they talk about? They talk about the blood flow is clogged. Some artery is clogged and some vein is clogged. When you get a stroke, what do they talk about? Some vein is clogged. Going to your mind, going to your brain. And that's when everyone starts worrying about money. That's when everyone calls in, yes, they call in the neurologist and the cardiologist, but they also remember to call in the hematologist and the people who talk about blood. Money is similar. When money is flowing well, we don't talk about money. We talk about what are we going to buy, this cyber truck. We talk about what are we going to build. We talk about which new building we're going to expand the mosque to, mashallah. But when there's a problem, that's when we look more deeply at money. And what I want to show is that for the last, for hundreds of years, even during the time of Ibn Jama'a Tunisi, as long as there was a Muslim world, as long as there was a caliphate, money was flowing well. But for the last 100 years, since we've been on a very new kind of money system, it's been clogged like arteries are clogged when there's a heart attack. And money is no longer working for us. Rather, we are working for the money. And the Muslim Ummah and us as families are struggling to get mortgage payments down and get houses down and get the new jobs and get the new investments, and constantly struggling to race with society as the Ummah is struggling to race in the world because of money. And if we can somehow get money to work for us and not against us, then we can perhaps end our lives like Umar radiallahu anh talked about. You see, when Umar radiallahu anh was asked, what would you do if it was your last day on this earth? What would you do if you were about to die? What would we do if we were to ask ourselves that question? Some of us would say, I'd enjoy all the halal food I can. I'd go, travel everywhere I can. Maybe some of us are more, mashallah, pious. We'd say, I'd make up all those missed prayers. I'd just come to the mosque and sit there and pray. Guess what Umar radiallahu anh said? He said, if it were my last days, my last moments in this earth, I would go to the marketplace and I would offer my services and I would offer my goods to earn money for my family. And there is no doubt that when we're talking about Umar radiallahu anh, the second best person in this ummah, the second best man to walk after the Prophet ﷺ and after Abu Bakr radiallahu anh was Umar, there was no doubt he was thinking of the best possible thing he can do with his time before passing away. And the best possible thing he could think of was earning money, pure money, so that he can use it for the sake of Allah, and so that the spiritual life of himself, his family after him, and the ummah for generations to come would be healthy. And so, with that being said, how can we get to that level of feeling the pureness and the spirituality through our money? The first thing I'd like to talk about is in order to understand how we can get to that level and what are even the problems today, is how does money work today? And I'm going to make it very, very simple. I'm not even going to talk about the complicated, banks and Federal Reserve and Treasury. I'm going to make it very simple through an analogy, okay? So bear with me for the sake of this analogy. Imagine you live back in the 16th century, okay, a few hundred years ago. You wake up tomorrow and it's a few hundred years ago and everything is still here. You're still in Folsom, California. And you decide you're going to open a biryani shop. Okay? Biryani shop. I know there's different camps of biryani here. I know there's a Hyderabadi camp of biryani. I know there's I see a Tamil camp of biryani. I know there's I'm sure a Karachi, Bengali, Lahori camps of biryani. But for the sake of this example, we'll say, we'll go with Hyderabadi biryani. And maybe I know Hafiz uncle is out in the audience here. We're going to say that this is called Hafiz Hyderabadi biryani. All right? And you're starting this biryani shop. It's the 16th century. And so, of course, when you start this biryani shop and it's doing well, when you're accepting the money, you're not accepting US dollars, right? Because the US dollar doesn't exist. What you're accepting is gold coins, okay? So your biryani shop is doing well. You collect 10 gold coins. You collect 20, 30, eventually even 100 gold coins. And there's the biryani, right? Hyderabadi, is that looking like Hyderabadi biryani? Close, okay, close. I try to get the best picture you can. But you start accepting, you have 100 gold coins. Soon your business is booming. They hear about it all over the Sacramento and Bay Area, and they're coming to Folsom, and now you have 1,000 gold coins. But now there's a little problem. in your Hyderabadi biryani shop, or the one that's close to Hyderabadi biryani, you start getting people start attempting to break into your biryani shop. They start attempting to burglarize, to steal from your biryani shop because you have 1,000 gold coins sitting there in the corner of your biryani shop. And so you say, this is like, I just wanted to start a biryani shop. I didn't want to, deal with all these burglaries and break-ins. And so somebody comes along and he says, maybe we could say, since for the sake of this example, we can use Brother Rehan over here. And he says, you know what? I'm actually somewhat of a goldsmith myself. And I am specialized because I'm a goldsmith in keeping this gold safe. So, you, Ahmed, or you, Maryam, or you, Bilal, don't worry about, just worry about the Hyderabadi biryani. I'll take care of the gold. And you keep the gold safe with me. And this is, and on top of this, so this is how money, if you can say, vaguely worked 400 years ago, okay, 500 years ago. Only gold coins, there were no notes. And of course, different places in the world had different gold coins. And there were people like Brother Rehan keeping track and keeping your gold safe. Now, there was an issue. You get ambitious in your Hyderabadi biryani shop, okay, because it's super successful. And you start expanding all over the Sacramento Bay Area. So you decide you're going to open a store perhaps in, West Sac. You open a store in even the Bay Area. You open a store in San Jose, in Fremont. Where else should we open a store? Elk Grove, all over. And your business is booming. You go from 1,000 gold coins to 10 times that. How much is 10 times? I'm going to ask people to do a little math because this is something about money. How much is 10 times 1,000? 10,000 gold coins. That's a lot of gold coins. And now that your business is booming, you're not buying the meats from one place. You're buying the meat sometimes from Dixon. You're buying the goat and the chicken and the lamb and whatever other meats Hyderabadis put in their biryani. You're buying it from Harris Ranch down in San Jose. You're buying it from Central Valley. So your money has to be transferred to different locations, and it's becoming a big hassle. Of course, Folsom is your first branch, so it's doing really well. It's generating thousands of gold coins. And you have to take this money and transfer it all over the Bay Area and Sacramento. So Brother Rehan, he comes up with a smart idea. He says, you know what? Ahmed, Bilal, Maryam, whoever out there is running this Hyderabadi biryani shop, you don't have to move this gold around. I have become a reputable goldsmith, and all you have to do is take these little gold notes that I've generated, okay? Little gold pieces of paper. It says, Rehan's Goldsmith Shop. And everyone is going to accept these gold pieces of paper no matter where you go. And you can also take these gold pieces of paper, and whenever you want, you can come get your money from me. Whenever you want, you can come redeem your gold coins from me. And whenever people want, they can also come redeem gold coins from me as long as they have this little piece of paper. All right? And that is actually how money worked. So we said 400 years ago, it was what? Just a bunch of gold coins, right? And stored with different people. 100 years ago, this is how gold money worked. Or this is how money worked. Is that you had pieces of paper that were representations of gold coins stored with someone. Anyone notice something interesting about this $5 bill?
Top left-hand corner, all that small text.
Exactly. Top left-hand corner, all this small text. And what does the small text say? It says it's redeemable in gold, on demand, anytime you want. Back in those days, you could have taken your dollar bill, gone to your local Federal Reserve, which, there's one in San Francisco, and redeemed that dollar bill for some gold coins. So that's how money worked 100 years ago. And that sounds amazing, right? Imagine you could have done that today. Redeemed any money you had for gold coins. But something happened. What happened? So, go ahead. Nixon. But I want to explain what was the motivation behind that. You see, Rehan, he did well for himself in his goldsmith shop, and he said, you know what, I'm going to pass that on. And I'm going to pass it on to an uncle whose name happens to be Sam. Okay? And maybe this name was originally some kind of Jordanian or Shami uncle whose name was actually Samir or Sammy. But, as things happen, he shortens his name to Sam. And you can call him Uncle Sam. And he had this idea. Hafiz Hyderabadi biryani shop is doing well. And you know what? It's doing so well now that there's more than Hafiz Hyderabadi biryani shop. There's Sam Shawarma shop. There's, the Caliphate couscous shop. Okay? There's all kinds of shops. The Yemeni Qahwa house shop. There's all kinds of restaurants flourishing around the Sacramento Bay Area. And you know what? No one ever comes back to pick up their gold coins. All they're using is these, now Rehan has passed on his thing, Uncle Sam's notes. That's all they're passing around. So he says, you know what if I just get rid of these notes? What if I just get rid of the gold? No one's ever coming back to pick up the gold. I'll just give it most of the gold back. I'll just hide the gold away. And I will say the money is just the money, the notes. This money, previously we had 10,000 gold coins. And so how many notes would we have? 10,000 notes. But now all I'm going to say is that there are no more gold coins. There are only notes. 10,000 notes. And so everything should work fine, right? We're having our biryani, we're having our, shawarma, we're having our coffee, everything's working okay, nothing's wrong, right? Well, there's a few problems that happened along the way. And this is where I want to point out that we're going to talk about the problems and how the money today, the monetary system today that we're actually a part of, the dollar bills that we're using, whether we're doing it intentionally or not, is in some sense deeply anti-Islamic. In some sense, deeply, I would say deeply anti-ethical, anti-human in a way. The first way that is that no matter what you do today, you cannot escape riba. You cannot escape interest. In the example we gave, of how money was issued, it was just that there were gold coins, and for every gold coin, there was a note, right? Later, the gold coins were gone, and now they were just notes. So, how is the money issued? Any guesses? Sorry? Bretton Woods. Okay, mashallah, some people have read the history. Promises. And some people said debt. That is exactly correct. To dumb it down for everyone, to simplify it, you can imagine that there is a magical money fountain, okay? And this money fountain generates money for all of us, and that's the good news, the money is always constantly generated, but there's some bad news. And the bad news is that the money only is generated when you give an interest-based loan. That is, the only way to generate money is by taking a loan from the bank and taking a loan from interest. And today, 97% of all money that's generated, 97% of all money that we have in our bank accounts, in our wallets, under our mattresses, if we hide it there, all that money is directly, 97% of it was at some point from an interest-based loan. And this is whether or not we ourselves take the interest-based loan, even if we are taking perhaps our money just directly from the company or from our customers when we run our shop, or from our salary from a non-profit institution. But whether we like it or not, 97% of that money comes at some point from an interest-based loan. And interestingly enough, the Prophet ﷺ talked about this in the very early days. And it's narrated in a hadith in Sunan Abi Dawood that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يأتين على الناس زمان لا يبقى أحد إلا أكل الربا. That there will come a time where essentially every single one of us will be eating from interest, will be consuming interest in some way or the other. So the Sahaba, in some narrations, the Sahaba of course asked, how is that possible? Of course there has to be some good Muslims out there, right? Some just people not taking interest. And he said, well, even those just people, if they are not taking interest themselves, they will have on them the dust of interest. They will have on them the dust of interest in their money. And many of my teachers, they say, that is what we are living today. That even if we are a good Muslim and we don't take interest and we only take Islamic loans and guidance and we only take, and maybe we don't even do that. We say, oh, I don't really trust the Islamic loans. I only take cash. I only buy houses on cash. Well, the reality is that money, that cash that we are having, 97% of it came at some point from an interest-based loan. So that's the first way. The first way that this money system that we're living in is deeply anti-Islamic. I'm going to share one more way, and then we'll talk a little bit about crypto. And this way that I'm going to share is perhaps the most nefarious, the most startling, and I would say the least understood by Muslims. And that is that the dollar system that we live in today, whether or not we give taxes, even if we were somehow able to avoid all the taxes, whether or not we boycott Starbucks and boycott McDonald's, which is a great thing to do, alhamdulillah. And we saw recently that it had a great effect and they fired the CEO and the CEO resigned, which is code word for he got fired. But the CEO resigned and McDonald's losing money, alhamdulillah. But whether or not we do this, we are still participating in a system that funds war. How so? I'll start with a simple example. And this is actually a real example that happened in the history of Muslims. In 1914, the UK, the British Empire at the time, entered a world war against the last Muslim caliphate, the last place where you could say Islam, to a degree, was practiced to its full extent. To a degree, was practiced with not just in our daily lives, in our personal lives, but on a societal scale, even in the government. And I know, mashallah, we have Professor Miraj here. He will perhaps problematize that statement, right? And there are issues, yes, there were issues with how Islam was practiced even at the end of the caliphate. But nonetheless, it was practiced to a great degree more than it is today. And this Islamic caliphate, the last death knell, you could say, to it, or one of the last death knells, things that destroyed it, was it being defeated in the World War. Of course, by the British. And some of us who know some amount of history know that it was defeated by rebellions and revolts that the British funded across the Muslim world. Now, I'll ask, perhaps, maybe somebody has studied this more deeply. How did the British fund these rebellions and revolts? Anyone have a thought on there? Somebody said something there? Loans. Rothschild. Okay, that was part of it, yes. And loans. Loans were exactly what happened. You see, in 1914, the British government took $350 million in loans. They tried very hard, actually, to take $350 million in loans. But the problem is no one would give them those loans. So what did they do? They didn't just, as we said, spin up the magical money fountain and then give the money to the government as a loan. No, that would be too obvious, you know. They did something a little more tricky. First, they printed the money. They gave it to the top bankers in the country, who then gave it to the government as loans. Just one step a little more complicated than giving it directly to the government. And the reality is that was completely hidden from public view for 100 years. In fact, the Financial Times even said it never happened. They published it officially in the Financial Times. It never happened until 100 years later in 2014, where no one cared to look in the Financial Times. They issued a little edit that said, actually, that's exactly what happened. The government didn't have the money to fund this war, so we issued some loans to ourselves. And that is the war that perhaps undid the last Muslim empire. And we say today that continues to happen. That continues to happen. Or actually, I forgot one step, okay, that gets a little bit crazier, okay? Bear with me with some math here, okay? Remember when we said that example of there were 10,000 gold coins from your Hyderabadi biryani shop? And you had 10,000 notes that Rehan's goldsmith issued? Now imagine we issued 10,000 more notes. Okay, so now there are 20,000 notes. Did the total amount of money actually change? The total amount of wealth that was there actually change in your Hyderabadi biryani shop? No, it didn't. Even if he gave you all these notes, it didn't change. Now, what if he actually, you already had your 10,000 notes, and we won't say Brother Rehan did it, but somebody more nefarious after him did this, right? Maybe it was Uncle Sam. What if he said, Ahmed, Bilal, Maryam, you already have your 10,000 notes. You're happy. I'm going to keep 10,000 notes for myself. What actually happened there? Anyone want to take a guess? Theft. What actually happened was that Uncle Sam took half your money. There's only 10,000 gold coins. But by issuing 10,000 more notes and keeping those 10,000 for himself, he took half your money to use for whatever he wanted. This is exactly what happened, actually, on a greater scale in the British Empire and World War I. You see, this sterling, this pound, was used across the world. It wasn't just used in the UK itself. The biggest users of it outside of the UK was none other than the Indian subcontinent. None other than what is modern-day Pakistan, modern-day India, modern-day Bangladesh, where hundreds of thousands of Muslims were holding their money in the British pound. But the gold wasn't there. The gold was held, of course, by the UK. And so when they issued more of these notes, what essentially happened was they took some Muslim money. They took some Muslim money to fund the downfall of the very last Muslim empire itself. And you see, that is what continues to happen to this day. Now, not in the British Empire, but now in the American Empire. When we hold dollars and the American Empire issues $2 trillion of debt, yes, $2 trillion of debt after 9/11 to fund the wars in Afghanistan, to fund the bombings in Iraq, and to fund most recently the genocide in Gaza, it is taking our money from the dollar system to do that. And that's whether or not we pay taxes, whether or not we boycott Starbucks, whether or not we boycott McDonald's. Our money is being taken, our wealth is being taken to fund the killing and bombing of Muslims around the world. Simply because we are part of this interest-based money system. And I'm no scholar, but, and mashallah, we have our sheikh here in the audience. I think perhaps if some of the ulama were to take a second look at the ayah, some of the mufassirun were to take a second look at the ayah, that Allah says that when you take interest, you are permitting the war of Allah and His Prophet against yourselves, they would say that there is some kind of ishara, some kind of pointing towards what's going on today. That when we are part of this interest-based system, we are inevitably waging a war against our own Muslim brothers. So I promised to talk a little bit about crypto, and I know we have how much time till Aisha? Okay, 20 minutes. So 2 minutes about crypto. Very briefly, to understand crypto and how it can help us get out of this interest-based system, I want to give an analogy that every Muslim can understand. When you come to the masjid, when you came to the masjid a few months ago here for Taraweeh, prayer at the Folsom Masjid, and the Huffaz were reciting here, right? There were some Huffaz, they were reciting here, and you know, it happens, they made a mistake, right? Sometimes, if we attended the whole Taraweeh, they made a mistake in the Quran. What happened when they made a mistake? There were a few Huffaz, perhaps one or two, the Shaykh, the Imam, a few Huffaz that corrected that mistake. And perhaps if it was, you know, something like Surah Yasin, Surah Mulk, there were more than a few Huffaz correcting that mistake. If it was in Juz Amma, it would be the whole masjid correcting that mistake, right? That whole masjid, those few Huffaz, did they all take the Quran from the same exact copy of the Quran, somewhere stored in some glass box in some treasure chest in Mecca? No, they didn't do that. The way the Quran is preserved and the way the Quran is taken is they all took it from their own teachers, perhaps very different teachers from across the world, perhaps very different chains from across the world that are all aligned, all different sanads from across the world that are all somehow have preserved the same exact copy of the Quran all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. The way that Bitcoin and the way that Ethereum and the way that these money systems work is very similar. There are some computers all across the world, and these computers can be run by anyone. Anyone can spin them up and use them to, number one, generate a small amount of money. And number two, the reason those are generating a small amount of money is that they are running a money system that is used entirely across the world. And no one money system is its own money fountain that we talked about before. There's no single money fountain that the US government could have, that the British government could have, that any government can have. By the way, the entire world uses a system, whether a non-Muslim country, a Muslim country, even Pakistan, India, Egypt, all of them use the same interest-based money fountain. They have this magical money fountain where they're printing rupees and pounds and whatever you want, whatever currency, ringgits, okay? But in this system, there are hundreds, thousands of computers around the world that they are printing a small amount of money according to a predetermined formula that can never be changed. And this predetermined formula is agreed upon across all the different computers without them ever having to come from the same source. Just like the Quran is agreed upon by all these different Huffaz without them having to refer to one copy of the Quran somehow in Mecca. And so in this way, it's never changed, It's never transmutated. It's never able to be manipulated by any one single person, just like the Quran is not able to be manipulated. And so that, quite simply, is crypto. And it presents for us a system where I would say, I'm not here to say that everyone should go out and buy crypto right now, because I'm sure there's some skeptical people in the audience. What I'm saying is that all of you are smart people. All of you are smart people. Doctors, I know since you're Muslims, you're either doctors, engineers, and if it's not one of those two, it's a lawyer, right? Otherwise, we're a failure, right? As my parents once taught me. So you all are very smart people. Go out and see that when you are part of this, perhaps in this crypto economy, there is a way to escape an interest-based system. A system where there is one government or a few governments that are able to have a magical money fountain that can print dollars, that can print pounds, that can print rupees, and fund war whenever they want. And perhaps there is a system where you can, as a Muslim, slowly opt out of the dollar-based system that is funding these wars, whether you like it or not, and perhaps be part of a system that can never be manipulated, whether you're Muslim or not, whether you take interest or not, and whether you want to do something nefarious or not. And so with that, I will stop. I will stop here, and I guess we can stop for some brief questions before sharing a little bit about what the product that we are building. But I'll stop for some brief questions, comments, anything that people want to share. Go ahead. Listen.
But they say crypto is not a valid currency because you don't have a physical value to it. What do you have to say?
We say that, to repeat the brother's question, he says that crypto is not a valid currency. Crypto is not a valid currency because it doesn't have a physical backing. Now again, I don't want to speak as a scholar. We have our scholar here, mashallah, but I will speak on behalf of what scholars have said, as we are working with many ulama from around the world. The first thing is that let us ask that same question about the money we use today, about the US dollar, about the British pound, about the rupee. Where is the physical backing of that? We might say, well, it's the dollar bills we have right here in our wallets, right? What percentage of the US dollars and dollar bills? Anyone want to guess? 16%. If that. There are different estimates, but some have said even less than 10%, even less than 5% of the total money is actually in these dollar bills. And these are just printed representations of nothing physical. Some people say, well, the dollar is, backed by the US government and it's backed by the US military. As we've seen here, the US military is funded by the very money it prints. So it's just a giant circular Ponzi scheme. So what we would say is we have to take a deeper look at whether you need actually some physical backing. And this could differ by the madhab. This could differ by the school of interpretation. But there are many ulama. You can refer to Mufti Faraz Adam in the UK, Sheikh Farooq Habib, who are working with, Sheikh Saifullah Rajar, who are also working with, and many others who have said that there doesn't need to be a physical conception of what you're buying. And if that were the case, we cannot buy software, we cannot buy subscriptions, we cannot buy ebooks. There are no physical conceptions of these. They're just digits in the cloud. And so crypto is something similar. That's what we would say. Go ahead.
Two things. The first is just
Again, listen to your local, I would just say listen to your local scholars. I'm not here to come and change that. And inshallah, I'll talk with the shuyukh after privately. But there are shuyukh who are exploring this, and so you can go research that, inshallah. Go ahead.
Concerns about just the volatility. If I were to spend $50,000 on a Bitcoin or 60 there's so many different cryptocurrencies, and some of them are worth nothing. So it just seems like you could have 500 cryptocurrencies, or I don't know what the number is, but tomorrow you could have 10 more. So is there kind of a difference in terms of gradings of cryptocurrencies, and what do you think about in terms of volatility of them?
So, yeah, the volatility of cryptocurrencies. Crypto is a very new economy. Right today, it is even Bitcoin, as large as it is it's an over $1 trillion asset, by the way, and one of the top 10 assets in the world, already bigger than silver. Nonetheless, it's about maybe 2% of the entire dollar-based economy. So there's no doubt it's going to be very volatile. So as a investment, I wouldn't say go home right now and put all your money if you were somehow very convinced by this talk. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, but don't go home. Please do not go home and put all your money in Bitcoin, okay? If you are trying to get out of this dollar-based economy and into a crypto-based economy, then do so. And you have found the shuyukh and who have approved that, then do so in a way that is safe, and do so in a way that is called dollar cost averaging. Simply every month, you put in a little bit amount of your money into these assets. Now I'm going to ask, is crypto actually volatile? The reality is, if you look at the volatility over the past few years of the large assets like Bitcoin, they're actually less volatile than most stocks in the S&P 500. They are in fact less volatile than even big stocks like Tesla. Tesla has more volatility than Bitcoin, and is on par with even other big stocks like Amazon and Apple. So the idea that it's volatile is something that has persisted from the early days, but nowadays it's actually much less volatile, especially the big cryptocurrencies. And the second thing is, if you look, volatility is also a matter of time, looking at over a certain time period. If you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and some of the big cryptocurrencies over a 5-year time period, they're actually the fastest growing assets in the world. They're growing faster than real estate, growing faster than stocks, growing faster than gold. So if you had put in some amount of money 5 years ago, it would be worth more today, despite all the ups and downs, than all of these different assets. The last thing I'll say about different cryptocurrencies is this is something that, again, as Muslims, as just investors, you should be very cautious of. And that's why I'm not giving any specific token recommendations here. But if you are somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, stick to the big cryptocurrencies. Stick to Bitcoin, stick to Ethereum, stick to, at most, if you're going a little more riskier, Solana. And do this in a very safe manner, as I mentioned. Don't just go home and put all your savings in this. Don't, even if you have one lump sum of money, don't put it in all at once into any one of these. Talk to people. You can talk to me after if you have my contact. Talk to people. There's Ibrahim is here in the audience, mashallah. I think there's some other crypto people. If people have been in crypto, you can raise your hand and you can talk to them after. And they will give you the advice of how to invest your money in a safe way, inshallah, without getting scams. Because there are a lot of scams in crypto. That's a part of any nascent industry. Just like when the gold rush was happening here in the 1850s, and this is why Folsom was started, and this is why the whole Bay Area was started, and the entire Sacramento area with the gold rush. There were a lot of scams. People selling a lot of fake gold, a lot of fake shovels, and a lot of fake pickaxes. So that's a natural part of the new industry. Go ahead.
I spoke to my financial advisor regarding crypto. Just
Yes.
like you said, don't go out buy crypto. He's advised the same thing. And looking at the brochure, you talked about the Riba crisis. And on one hand, you're saying don't put everything in there. On the other hand, you're saying do it cautiously.
Yeah.
What is the solution that you're providing for the Riba crisis?
The solution is honestly multi-step. The first part of the solution is understanding the problem. I think that's, if Muslims are able to understand what we talked about here today and take it to other people, understand that you continuing to save money in dollars, you continuing to invest in dollars is indirectly, actually quite directly, funding wars across the world, is quite directly participating in getting the dust of riba. Understanding that problem itself is huge. That's what I would say, number one. Because I am not someone here to come and purely shill crypto. I think the solution is multifaceted. The solution will take a lot of smart Muslims thinking about different solutions. And I know many of those smart Muslims. You can look up some of these people, Haris Irfan. You can look up Islamic finance guru. Okay? And many of these people are working on different solutions, some of them not even related to crypto. So crypto itself is just one part of the solution. And as for when you're zooming into crypto, again, if you do so cautiously over the next 5 to 10 years, I personally know people who have managed to put 50, 60, 70% of their savings in Bitcoin, in Ethereum. But they did this 5, 10 years ago, slowly, over those 5, 10 years. And now when they look at their savings, it's actually increased by 10, 50, 100x, right? But if you were to do this today, all I'm saying, if you do this today and then Bitcoin price goes down by 20% tomorrow, I think you'll be giving me a very angry call, and I don't want to hear that angry call. So do this over the next 5, 10 years, and you'll find a way to safely port over that money. And also look at these other solutions. But I think 90% of the problem, as I believe it was Einstein who said this, 90% of the problem, or the solution, is just understanding the problem. So, and communicating that problem to others. Go ahead, Professor.
I think that, from the practical steps, you're kind of saying that consider crypto as an investment vehicle. But really, in terms of the system, the step that really needs to be taken is that cryptocurrency, which is not controlled by any kind of governmental entity, needs to become a medium of exchange, not just an investment vehicle, right? So we need to, as a community or society, get to a place where businesses are accepting crypto as a payment. And people are offering crypto as, I want to purchase products and services. And in that way, basically, the more we move the economy into using crypto as a medium of exchange, the less power we give to these governments that are manipulating currency to do all these bad things. That's the big argument, right?
Yes, that's an excellent point. That in order for crypto to become a fully viable system, there also businesses need to accept it. Payments need to be done in it. And this is very true. The way that happens, is first that crypto is used as an investment. And that's the reality as how Bitcoin started and how Ethereum started, is people simply saw the potential of them. Where is this going to be in 10, 5, 20, 50 years? They saw the potential, and that's why I'm going to put this in as an investment. And the reality today is, even though it's not used as a system of payment here in America, maybe in Europe, as a system of transferring money, it's actually used as a major system of transferring money in the Muslim world. And I know personally from people who run these companies and services in countries like the Emirates, countries like Egypt, countries like Pakistan, that there are billions of dollars in crypto that people are sending back home. I know people who send money back home to Afghanistan, to Pakistan, to Egypt in crypto. Billions that are sent back home. Billions that are saved in crypto. Billions that are sent between these different countries every single week in crypto. And we're not aware of it here, but it is happening in the Muslim world. And eventually will happen more here as it's used and seen as an investment and then eventually as a monetary system. I'm going to end there for today. We have about 4 minutes. Anyone else who has questions can come talk to me after, inshallah. I just wanted to mention one point, and that point is that for folks, delay by 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, I'll mention the point, then we'll take 1-2 questions, inshallah. What we are doing, very briefly, we are running a product, and that product is what we call a more halal Ethereum staking. The way that this system of computers runs is that all these computers are run by people and by companies. And they are managing different payments and services, as we talked about. And they get paid a certain amount, the computers on the blockchain, they get paid a certain amount for managing these services and payments. However, today, these computers, they run all kinds of services, all kinds of payments. So if you were to invest your Ethereum, you can buy Ethereum, and that's like buying a stock, but you can also invest your Ethereum, and that's like earning a dividend from your stock, okay? And the way you invest your Ethereum is you give it to these computers who are running the blockchain and earning a profit. However, these computers today, they're running all kinds of services. They're running gambling services, they're running leverage trading services, and they're running interest-based loan services. And so what we're doing at our company is we are running computers purely that run only halal services. And they filter out all these gambling services, these leverage-based services, these loans, interest-based loan services. And so when you invest that Ethereum in our computers, you're only earning a percentage from halal services. So if anyone's interested in that, they can come talk to me as well after. You can also look up the name of our company, which is called Insha'Allah, for Inshallah, and you can look that up on LinkedIn or Twitter. We're there in both places. Or you can simply scan this QR code and join the WhatsApp, inshallah. We'll have more information on crypto, more information on money and the riba problem, also from scholars that we're working with, available there.
So you mining Ethereum? Is this what you mean? You are working in mining Ethereum?
We are working in mining Ethereum? Yes, loosely. We are working in mining. This is the business. Yeah, you can say that. Go ahead. Let's start with the brother who didn't ask the question, right? Okay, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Is there like a primary and a secondary market in crypto? Like by the time, like Coinbase and Robinhood, by the time they get the tokens, they're a secondary market.
Coinbase and Robinhood, they're a secondary market?
Yeah, like they're.
Can you explain more what you mean by primary and secondary? Yes, they're not the ones that are earning, they don't earn the crypto directly. The crypto is directly earned by the miners and by the people running the blockchain. Those are the people. The computers around the world, anyone can spin up a computer to run the blockchain around the world, and those are the people earning the money. Those are the people earning the Bitcoin, earning the Ethereum. And then Coinbase and Robinhood, they buy this from them, and then they resell it, you could say. Yeah. Go ahead, brother.
I have one basic question.
Bismillah.
So how are we actually, because all of this crypto again is based on the dollar, right? So how are we actually moving by adopting crypto? What good is doing? Because again we are going back to dollar system and then buying the crypto.
Meaning, you're saying that, I'll take a quick picture here. You're saying that you buy the crypto in dollars.
Again, you're valuing the crypto in dollars. Then how are you avoiding it?
The system is not. Once you're out of the system, you have reduced your demand for dollars. To put it this way, as long as you're continuing to use dollars, as long as you're continuing to invest in dollars, And even if you're buying the real estate and then selling it back in dollars, as long as you're part of the system, the US government can continue to print dollars, continue to take a percentage, and you won't see the effect. You'll see a little bit of inflation, but you won't see the effect overall. When you're buying crypto, yes, you have to buy it in dollars, but it's a one-way exit. Once you've bought the Bitcoin, you bought the Ethereum, you bought the Solana, whatever it is, hopefully you're never going back and selling to dollars. Even if you sell some amount, you're not selling all of it. And so what happens eventually is hundreds of thousands of dollars and billions of dollars leave this economy. So actually already hundreds of billions of dollars have left completely the dollar-based economy, and they're never returning to crypto. They haven't returned. You can track everything in the blockchain. They've never returned to the dollars in 15 years. So hundreds of billions. I hope that answers the question. We'll stop there for today. All right. We'll stop by just making dua that Allah puts beneficial rizq in everyone's life, that Allah keeps us all away from the haram in whatever way it is, whether it's through crypto or some other means, and Allah lifts the oppression on the Muslim ummah, on our brothers in Sudan, in Gaza, in Kashmir, and all across the world, in China. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Thank you all for coming.